Hi everybody, it is June 27, 2020. This is a video regarding BLM. Who funds them? This is all an organized effort to bring in a communism on steroids, something that no one wants to live, but an awful lot of people are involved in creating it, and they don't know it. But do they have to wake up? For sure. Will they? Well, I don't think so. But it's interesting because we have lived now, certainly since 9/11/2001, in a radically different country, with all of the institutions showing us, it has been put in our face that we were going tyranny. Massive corruption. And no, it's not the police, white police officer only killing black people. White people are dying at the hands, or have died at the hands of police officers more than blacks. But why then do we see mainstream media, the repetition 24/7 of white police officer killing black man unarmed? Because they're triggering a race war. They want us to hate one another. And unfortunately, a lot of people are quite easily manipulated. Now, let me just read just this little excerpt from this article. The black versus white dichotomy creates a permanent enemy class. Unlike the proletariat class consciousness, race consciousness already exists, making mobilization easier. And that's why they go for it. Let me play just this video, which is good up until, well, I think you'll see at that point that it's taken the wrong direction.
A Tampa Bay pastor has been arrested for violating coronavirus social distancing rules.
We will shut you down, we will arrest you, and we will take you to jail. Period.
Safety groups are turning to drones to monitor public spaces.
I'm starting to feel like I'm in a communist country.
Protests turned destructive in downtown Seattle tonight.
There are certainly aspects of them that are true to a cause. That is a good cause.
It says it right in the name, Antifa, anti-fascism.
I went to the big guys for the money. I was ready to prostitute myself.
The Bidens have done very well, and Joe Biden's been very sophisticated and shrewd in the way he's done it. He's essentially offshored the corruption.
I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
We have to say yes to socialism, to the word and everything.
We are living in many ways in a socialist society right now.
Only in America, when the president tweets about liberation, does he mean go back to work. I think a lot of people should just say no.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain.
The next moment I looking down, my hands are being put in handcuffs, my ankles are shacked.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country.
He understands that what's at stake is the American dream itself.
The best is yet to come. Thank you. God bless you.
Divide and conquer. The many ways. Black, white, red, blue. Okay. if people don't wake up really fast, if Americans don't start critically thinking again, then all of these agendas that we have been screaming about for years are all going to coalesce, and it's the New World Order. Perhaps the announcement 2021. World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. And unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult to handle emotionally, mentally, physically, because the chaos, the violence, the insanity is going to just continue to grow on a daily basis. Now, people are getting really fed up.
Move the fuck out my way. So black man versus black man? This is what they want. Who gives a fuck? All they're trying to do right now is release their fucking white milk. That's why they're fucking doing it. They don't really give a fuck about that. Go home. No, fuck, I'm not. You guys are not. Fuck, I'm not them. I'm not you. You're sitting there destroying their property. That's why you're homeless.
Now, I don't know that man in the red sweatshirt. I don't know exactly why he was doing this. The video is the title, "We the People Have Had Enough, Time to Push Back." Okay. Well, based on what we see, this is a presumption, but I do know that an awful lot of people are getting really fed up is an understatement. Really angry because these people out on the street are disrupting all of our lives. All of our lives. So, you know, if you've not seen Does the USA Sponsor Revolutions? I'm going to play a few minutes of this very important documentary on those color revolutions that people thought were just, well, you know, the Arab Spring. People were just coming out onto the street. It was all organic, and they just wanted to topple their governments that were tyrannies, the dictators. No, it was all organized and funded by, well, a whole lot of the monopoly organizations that Black Lives Matter, well, ostensibly wants to bring down. Well, Black Lives Matter is also funded by those organizations. And, of course, that name, George Soros.
Democracy has awoken in the Middle East, but was what seems like a spontaneous revolution actually a strategically planned event, cultivated by professional consultants?
The events in North Africa are orchestrated down to the finest details.
These revolution consultants are the worst nightmare of every regime. Here you can see the symbol of resistance.
We are becoming the red flag for the secret police of these places.
They mainly operate in countries in which the Western world has a clear interest. Hardly a coincidence, it seems.
The institutions that support him, you take those away, the regime has to fall.
Cairo in early February. The sudden appearance of the wild horsemen at this demonstration shocked the world over. Storming into the crowd, they split the peaceful demonstration apart. Yet what seemed like a brutal attack by the Mubarak regime was actually a staged affair, intended for the national and international media. The message? Egypt is in a state of chaos. Provoked by these false attacks, demonstrators reacted with violence and the situation escalated. Right from the start, the revolution consultants follow a specific strategy, a strategy developed by the Serbian organization Otpor. This organization mobilized millions of people to bring about the downfall of Serbian leader Slobodan Milosevic. Their strategy became a blueprint, proving successful once again when used in the revolution in Egypt. Otpor organized workshops in the outskirts of Cairo. In these workshops we were trained in the art of peaceful resistance. We had to learn that the police are not our enemy and that we must try to get them on our side. We had to impress people with the idea of non-violent resistance. Opposition movements from all over the world come here, to the Serbian capital Belgrade, to be educated in the art of overthrowing a dictatorship. The Serbs have used their experience 12 years ago to form a revolution training school, the Center of Strategy for Non-Violent Resistance, or for short, CANVAS. Chief instructor Serdar Popovic is one of the few CANVAS members who would show his face publicly in front of the camera. It was here in his office that the Egyptian revolution was planned.
The trick is that you don't push, you pull. What you're actually doing is actually persuading these people from the police force, from military force, that there will be a place for them in the new Egypt.
And it isn't just Egyptians getting trained in the art of revolution here.
The part of our work now is focused back to Middle East because of the few reasons. First of all, the struggle is not over. And we're already talking about 8 or 9 different countries. In some of these countries, which I of course wouldn't mention, we have very good groups which we are communicating with. We don't want to endanger these groups, so we wouldn't speak about this openly. In some of these countries, we are just observing situation and preparing analytics. It is very interesting what will come out of it.
Ovu fleku sigurno I nepovratno skida obuv I slične mrlje. Deluje. Gotov je.
It was here, outside the Belgrade parliament, that Otpor's influence began.
How many countries you were working with that after this?
We worked with 37 countries after the Serbian Revolution. We had a successful 5 revolutions now before Middle East. And this is Georgia, Ukraine, Lebanon, Maldives, and now Egypt and Tunisia. And the list will grow longer. And then at the end, we don't have an idea in how many countries the clenched fist of Otpor was used. This problem.
Well, now, these BLM protests happen to be all over the world. You hear Pelosi say, I'm very concerned about slavery. That's what she said at some point this week. I'm very concerned about slavery. We don't have slavery. Well, we're all slaves. But the slavery that she's talking about, that doesn't exist in our country anymore. And it hasn't for, well, I would say that there was definitely slavery in the 60s, civil rights movement, but so much has changed in our country. So why are we going backwards? Why are all of these people gaslighting us to make us believe that slavery still exists in our country when it actually does exist in some African countries, I believe Chad, and other countries, which now I'm going to have to bring that up. Hang on. So, 6 countries where slavery still exists. Mauritania, India, China, Uzbekistan, Libya, North Korea. Why? Why aren't you fighting to end slavery in these countries? 2016 Global Slavery Index, 45.8 million enslaved people in 167 countries, 1 in 4 victims being children. 1 in 4. Mauritania, they did pass a law that would prosecute slave owners. Still, since then, the country has only prosecuted 3 cases of slavery. India, Bangladesh, Pakistan. So, I don't understand. Slavery did end, well, the slavery that we're talking about, the real slavery, but wait, we're all now slaves. Well, we have been for a really long time. Okay, but you know what I'm talking about. They're just pushing us backwards. They're pushing us all backwards. And so many people are falling for it. So here, governments, businesses, consumers, global slavery index. We've got, let's see, how governments respond. Most action, United States. Least action, all of these countries. Strong, United States. We've got an awful lot of legislation to abolish, prevent, and legislation for discrimination. But, you know, slavery is not a crime in almost half the countries of the world. New research reveals that almost half of all countries in the world have yet to actually make it a crime to enslave another human being. Legal ownership of people was indeed abolished in all countries over the course of the last 2 centuries, but in many countries it has not been criminalized. In almost half of the world's countries, there is no criminal law penalizing either slavery or the slave trade. In 94 countries, you cannot be prosecuted and punished in a criminal court for enslaving another human being. So, India and China, top of the list. But we've got to topple our country. Due to slavery, we've got major corporations still involved in slave trade. Brazil's slave labor dirty list. This was just a year ago. 370,000 people in Brazil, country of about 210 million, are modern day slaves. So, there's no talk about this at all. No talk about this. This is where the efforts need to go, into these countries. The Catholic Church. The Catholic Church. The Church's history as the first and largest corporate slaveholder in the Americas. And yes, nuns are kept captive still today For decades, black Catholics have been at the forefront of the fight, calling for the church to confront its racist past. Now, a white person walking down the street is called a racist. They don't know them, have no idea whether or not they are a racist, but now it's just ordinary Americans being attacked as racists, and they're not. They're just not. But you're not going after the real, those involved in our country. And what we hear is that it's white people enslaving black people. But we don't hear about all of the blacks in Africa who were involved. Now, if you don't know anything about Ghana's slave castles, shocking story of the Ghanaian Cape Coast, you might want to, it's a hard article to read. It's not fun. But virtually every civilization has been involved in enslaving people. White people have been slaves. Black owners of slaves. And there were an awful lot of Africans, black people, involved in selling black people to Europeans. Prior to that, there were an awful lot of blacks enslaving blacks. We don't hear that. We only hear white people enslave black people. East Africa's forgotten slave trade. Over several centuries, countless East Africans were sold as slaves by Muslim Arabs to the Middle East and other places via the Sahara Desert and Indian Ocean. Experts say it is time for this to be discussed more openly. You think? I'd say yes, because it's not just white people. Slavery has existed in practically all civilizations. This was also the case in Africa before the settlers came. Before the settlers came. Horrific. But it's not about skin color. It's about what's inside that skin. It's about the moral character of that individual. Black, white, polka dotted, doesn't matter. And if anybody thinks that the individual that is racist, regardless of color, is going to transform by rioting and looting and destroying and renaming and reparations and legislation, if you think that that's going to eradicate racism, you are dead wrong. Because the individual that has that disease of racism within themselves need to work on their own self. They have to think about why. Why is it that when I see somebody of a different color than I am, I don't like them, I think something's wrong with them? They need to do the work. You think you can get respect from people by destroying, looting, rioting, legislation, reparations, all of that? You're not, it just doesn't work that way. But you sure can transform a country that was, healing in a big, big way. You can transform that country. You can bring it down. You can destroy the whole thing. You can destroy the moral fabric, the culture, the economy. And that's where this is going. That's where this is heading. Now, read this story. My great-grandfather, the Nigerian slave trader. He was a renowned trader, my father told me proudly. He dealt in palm, produce, and human beings. Long before Europeans arrived. Igbos, I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation, enslaved other Igbos as punishment for crimes, for the payment of debts, and as prisoners of war. The practice differed from slavery in the Americas. Slaves were permitted to move freely in their communities and to own property, but they were also sometimes sacrificed in religious ceremonies or buried alive with their masters to serve them in the next life. When the transatlantic trade began in the 15th century, the demand for slaves spiked. Igbo traders began kidnapping people from distant villages. Sometimes a family would sell off a disgraced relative. Between the 15th and the 19th century, nearly 1.5 million Igbo slaves were sent across the Middle Passage. In the 19th century, the author's great-grandfather carried a slave trading license from the Royal Niger Company, an English corporation that ruled southern Nigeria. His agents captured slaves across the region and passed them to middlemen, who brought them to the ports of Bonny and Calabar and sold them to white merchants. Slavery had already been abolished in the United States and the United Kingdom, but his slaves were legally shipped to Cuba and Brazil. To win his favor, local leaders gave him their daughters in marriage. Blacks were involved in the slave trade. When the slave traders were African, those whose ancestors sold slaves to Europeans now struggle to come to terms with a painful legacy. Okay, this is not about skin color. It's about what we do to one another, regardless of the color of one's skin. And you know, I want to just play excerpts of these videos. We also are getting the impression from mainstream media that, first of all, it's whites who are somehow still racist against blacks. Not true. Not saying there aren't white people who are racist because, well, yeah, but it is, I would say, for the most part, again, we have come so far in terms of racism in our country, and it just breaks my heart to see. Well, it's a manipulation, it's gaslighting. Now, we're led to believe that this is still going on in our country. And, well, it's kind of mind-blowing because it's not. It's just not. And if you understood the foundation of Black Lives Matter, then you would understand that we're all being played.
So, here we go again. You know what's so crazy is you can look through my timeline. I want you to find the video that I posted like, I don't know, I think it was like maybe 3 weeks ago now, maybe even a month ago. And I told you, more and more videos are coming. This is what they do. They play with you, black people. I'm gonna tell you something right now. You know why you're the target? Because you're the only group that has group thinking like that. You're the only group that they got this trigger word. And I'm beginning to really think that Pavlov really did his experiment on black people. I'm so serious when I say that, because I swear to you, all they gotta do is say white men did it and y'all lose all sense of reason. I don't understand it. It makes no sense. Because basically that means you give them all your power. All of it. You give them all of your power, and I don't understand how you don't get that nobody should be able to use a code word and trigger every single person to do the exact same thing. Like, I'm sitting here looking at you guys like, are you serious? How many videos you gonna let them show you? Do you ever stop and think, why do they only show you Black death? Why is it only shown Black men dying on TV? And they show you it again and again and again and again. That should be what you're upset about. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, you should be suing the media. The media should have a class action lawsuit. Period. For being part of all of this. Because basically, they're creating a race war. That's what they want. The media wants it. The politicians want it. The New World Order want it. I don't even know the devil himself wants it, okay? Understand, this is Satan's playground. And y'all being pawns, but yet you claim you're Christians. I'm confused, or whatever you may be. You claim to be all these, things, these religions and this and that. So how could you let somebody make you jump? They pull a puppet, they pull a string, and you go jump. And I sit back, and I get cussed out for sitting back. Because I sit back every single time, and I say, I'm going to wait. Oh, no, it's clear this time. Oh, no, it's clear. We don't have to wait for anything. It's murder. It's murder. Really? Do you even know the law? How is that clear? How is a 30-second tape of the ending of something clear to you? First off, none of it is real. It's a staged production. They're playing with you. They keep you so upset. They keep you so emotional. There's no way you can function properly.
And that's the point. That's the point. They keep triggering people's emotions. And it's not just Black people who are jumping. It's white people who are jumping. Oh, wait. No. They're kneeling. They're apologizing for the color of their skin. They're toppling statues. And you know what? Black people laugh at white people toppling statues. Well, I don't laugh because I see what's happening. This is not funny at all because it's incredibly dangerous because all of the people out on the street, black, white, polka dotted, don't matter. You are furthering the agenda to destroy all of our freedom. Thank you very much. Pushed back against the idea that Black people support such behavior, suggesting instead that they laugh at those who knock down the statutes. BET founder Robert Johnson said during an interview. Black people, in my opinion, Black people laugh at white people who do this the same way we laugh at white people who say, we got to take off the TV shows. Dukes of Hazzard. Knocking over a statue will not close the wealth gap. People are not getting, white, black, Hispanic, you're not getting that this is a class war, not a race war that we're in. Give us the belief that you respect our opinion. Yeah, respect. Respect. So, with all of the rioting and the looting that is taking place, and we see an awful lot of white people doing it, not just Black people, you ain't got my respect. Lost. And my hunch is that a lot of people feel the same way. Black, white, Hispanic, polka dotted, don't matter. You go out and do something and destroy something, fire somebody because you think it hurts us. Why don't you ask first if it hurts us before you go and say, oh, I got to do something for the Negroes to make them feel better? Well, ask us if we want you to do that to make us feel better. White people's actions attempting to make Black people feel good this is his analogy. Rearranging the deck chairs on a racial Titanic. It absolutely means nothing. Everything means nothing. It's meaningless violence to bring about the full destruction of this country. All of us. All of us. So, not only do you not get my respect, you get my disgust and my anger because you don't know what you're doing. It's like that woman said, you're just puppets. You're just puppets. They pull the strings, and there you go dancing. White and black and everyone out there and all generations. You're the useful idiots, the dangerous, useful idiots pulling us all down. Thank you very much. This woman has my respect. This woman has my respect.
So today I'm going to clear up a whole lot of common misconceptions real quick. First off, I know I'm very well aware of the fact that I am an African-American female. Very aware. There's never been a day in my life I've not been aware of it. I've been discriminated against because I'm a woman. I've been discriminated against because I'm a woman of color. But on no day of any week of my life has my color been the first thing that's been out of my mouth as to why the situation is my problem. That's what my problem is. They discriminate because I'm black. I didn't get that job because I'm black. It rained today because I'm black. But that is why most of my friends now that I live in Huntington aren't of color. Because I got tired of being around people that every time we'd be talking about something that went wrong and happened, girl, they doing that shit because you black. Bitch, everything that happens ain't because you black, boo. Some shit, if you follow the entire thought process through, you realize maybe you wasn't qualified for that job. Maybe you might have done something to somebody that was in that position before you and they dropped it down and was like, hey, we can screw with them. You don't know, but sometimes it's real easy, especially when you carrying that chip on your shoulder like, it's because I'm black. Nah, boo. Sometimes it's just because you're a fucking asshole. People just don't fucking like you.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes it's just because we happen to be ourselves, regardless of skin color. But you know, it's very interesting because I've had experiences in the 80s, not recent, where, yeah, I think, well, I'm going to have to talk about them again because those videos came down when Kafka Winston World went down, my primary channel that YouTube just decided to put it down the memory hole. But, yeah, man, did we come a long way in this country, in my lifetime. Oh, you can't say anything because you're white. No, I can say my experience. I can absolutely express my experience. And what my life experience has shown me is that we, as a nation, healed an awful lot of that racism. Now we're going backwards because they don't want us. We're not supposed to unite. We're supposed to hate one another based on our skin color. You want to jump to that tune? Go right ahead. Go right ahead. But the respect that you claim you want, you sure as hell are going about it the wrong way.
You know what's funny? Y'all think y'all so much smarter than our ancestors, but you know what, really you're not. Because you know what they had? They had self-pride. They had self-respect. I keep telling people we had so much more when we had less. Because we had dignity, and you can't buy that. And they brought y'all welfare. They brought y'all all this free crap. And now you're crazy at it, and you don't have no good sense. You know why? Why would you care? You don't need to care. You got everything you need. It's too easy. Why care? I'm telling you. Y'all writing a check that y'all asses can't cash. I'm trying to warn you, but you know what? You go right ahead. Keep on doing what you're going to do, because you're going to do it anyway. Peace out.
So, let me go back to the main which I'm not going to go into in detail. The color revolutions. We've got a not the color of skin, but we've got a color revolution going on. Color revolution, CIA-led regime change operations using techniques developed by the RAND Corporation, democracy NGOs, and other groups since the 1980s. Black Lives Matter, Antifa. Hundreds of thousands of young Americans are being used. Yay! Look at me. I'm out on the streets screaming Black Lives Matter, and I'm being used and manipulated and gaslighted, and you're an idiot. Used as a battering ram to not only topple a U.S. president, but in the process, the very structures of the U.S. constitutional order. And I will say that the latter part of that, the latter U.S. constitutional order, is being battery rammed, not the U.S. president, because the U.S. president is part of the staged play, George Floyd. And look at what has happened since. It was a peaceful protest about police brutality, police murdering people. Oh, right. Mainstream media, they only put on the repetition 24/7 of white man, white cop, killing black. Well, I've posted videos on how many white men, unarmed, are being murdered by cops, but that doesn't suit the narrative that you are hearing and being manipulated by. You want respect? Start using your brain. And that's for everyone. That's for every color out there. Protests since May 25 have often begun peacefully, only to be taken over by well-trained violent actors. Two organizations have appeared regularly in connection with the violent protests, Black Lives Matter and Antifa. Videos show well-equipped protesters dressed uniformly in black and masked, not for coronavirus, vandalizing police cars, burning police stations, smashing store windows with pipes or baseball bats. Use of Twitter and other social media to coordinate hit-and-run swarming strikes of protest mobs is evident. Now, the author of this article, William Engdahl, is in this, he has done tremendous research on these color revolutions. Well, he's in here. No. Okay, he's part of the documentary. So, Minneapolis triggered event. Many are comparing it to 1968. Well, what's unfolding today is far different. It is better likened to the Yugoslav color revolution that toppled Milosevic. Can't remember how to pronounce his name, in 2000. The year 2000, the U.S. State Department, aided by its National Endowment for Democracy and select CIA operatives, began secretly training a group of Belgrade University students, led by a student group that was called Otpor Resistance. The NED and its various offshoots was created in the 1980s by CIA head Bill Casey as a covert CIA tool to overthrow specific regimes around the world under the cover of a human rights NGO. In fact, they get their money from Congress and U.S. aid. Yes, this gets very infuriating, because no matter how many times we try to post this information, there's an awful lot of people, not just Americans, but people around the world, who just don't want it. You want to act like morons. You want to, like, somehow being an idiot today is, you're prideful. The willful ignorance. People are literally arrogant. They have an arrogance about their willful ignorance. Well, the Serb outpour, destabilization of 2000, the NED, National Endowment for Democracy, and U.S. Ambassador Richard Miles in Belgrade selected and trained a group of several dozen students using the handbook From Dictatorship to Democracy. Post-mortem of that whole event, the Washington Post wrote, the U.S.-funded consultants played a crucial role behind the scenes in virtually every facet of the anti-drive, running tracking polls, training thousands of opposition activists, and helping to organize a vitally important parallel vote count. U.S. taxpayers paid for 5,000 cans of spray paint used by student activists to scrawl Milosevic, graffiti on walls across Serbia. Train squads of activists were deployed in protest to take over city blocks with the aid of intelligence helmet video screens that gave them an instantaneous overview of their environment. Bands of youth converging on targeted intersections in constant dialogue on cell phones would then overwhelm police. And there is evidence that similar tactics were being used. It's hard to even face what's happening in this country, so I don't even know what the hell is going on right now in terms of the riots, but I think a lot of it has quieted down, but they use it until the job is done. So many of these tactics were used in the rioting and the looting and the protests that were going on just a few weeks ago. U.S. government spent $41 million on the operation. In other countries, we're spending money to destabilize. We've been doing this for a very, very long time. Americans, on the whole, do not care. Well, guess what? Caring is really important. Putting a stop to any kind of immoral or evil behaviors is really important because it eventually comes back to you. Guess what? It has. It's manifested. It's right here in good old US of A. Student groups secretly trained in the Sharp Handbook techniques. Sharp Handbook. Elliot Sharp, who wrote the handbook, of staging protests that mocked the authority of the ruling police, showing them to be clumsy and impotent against the youthful protesters. Professionals from the CIA and U.S. State Department guided them behind the scenes. Color Revolution outpour model was refined and deployed 2004 in Ukraine. The Orange Revolution, with logo and color-themed scarves in 2003 in Georgia, the Rose Revolution, and our fabulous Hillary Clinton used the template to launch the Arab Spring. In all cases, the National Endowment for Democracy was involved, with other NGOs including the Soros Foundation. Milosevic, Popovic went on to establish a global color revolution training center, Canvas, a kind of for-profit business consultancy for revolution, and was personally present in New York working during Occupy Wall Street with Antifa. Soros money funded Antifa BLM. The impact of the protests would not be possible were it not for a network of local and state political officials inside the Democratic Party lending support to the protesters. If anybody who's an adult is in their right mind, they would understand the toppling of the statues, the looting, the rioting, all of it was allowed to just go on. We could have put a stop to it. The United States. USA, USA, USA. We've got the strongest military. We've got law enforcement that, wow, would they have loved to have shown their ability to put a stop to the criminal activity that was taking place, but they didn't. They just didn't. And an awful lot of the blue states, well, look at Washington, look at Seattle. The mayor said, take it over. Police stand down, National Guard, you are to unarm yourself. It's all a staged, deliberate play to bring us all down. In recent years, major portions of the Democratic Party across the U.S. has been quietly taken over by what one could call radical left candidates. Often they will, or often they win, with active backing of organizations such as Democratic Socialists of America or Freedom Road Socialist organizations. In the U.S. House of Representatives, in the vocal quarter of new representatives, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, I'm not sure, Minneapolis Representative Omar, all are members or close to Democratic Socialists. They're turning us into a communist country. Communism, well, on steroids. Clearly, without sympathetic Democratic local officials in key cities, the street protests of organizations such as Black Lives Matter and Antifa would not have had such a dramatic impact had they not been allowed to proceed with the destruction they cause. They caused and still causing. Who has been pouring millions into BLM, Antifa? Follow the money. 2013, 3 activist friends created Black Lives Matter hashtag to protest allegations of shooting Trayvon Martin. And George Zimmerman, a white Hispanic block watchman. Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, Opal Tometi were all connected with and financed by front groups. All 3 created the Black Lives Matter. All connected by front groups tied to something called Freedom Road Socialist Organization, one of the 4 largest radical left organizations in the United States, and formed out of something called New Communist Movement that dissolved in the 80s. Freedom Road Socialist Organization webpage states, the time is now to join a revolutionary organization. Join Freedom Road Socialist Organization. If you have been out in the streets this past few weeks, the odds are good that you've been thinking about the difference between the kind of change this system has to offer and the kind of change this country needs. Capitalism is a failed system. Oh, so it's not racism, it's capitalism. And you know why it's failed? Because there's a lot of people that don't have any moral core. Greed. It's not capitalism. It was greed. And monopolies allowed to exist. The reactionary and racist Trump administration has... Excuse me? Obama administration wasn't reactionary and racist? The unfolding economic crisis we are experiencing is the worst since the 1930s. Monopoly capitalism is a dying system, and we need to help finish it off. We need to bring in, well, what they call socialism. They're bringing in a communism that none of us have ever experienced, even those who live in communist nations. The protests over the alleged police killing of a black man in Minnesota are now being used to call for a revolution against capitalism. FRSO, which is the Freedom Road Socialist Organization, is an umbrella for dozens of amorphous groups, including Black Lives Matter, or BLM. What is interesting about the self-described Marxist-Leninist roots of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization? It's funded by a group of well-endowed, tax-exempt foundations. And if you don't believe that it is Marxist, Black Lives Matter, then listen to this woman. Who is this woman? One of the founders, Patrice.
I also think that it might, I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists.
There you go. Your admission. Marxists. And they're not about freedom. And they're so not about race. It's an ideology. And a dangerous one. So she was talking about Alicia right here. BLM. A board member or executive of 5 different Freedom Road Front groups, including 2011 board chair of Right to the City Alliance, board member of School of Unity and Liberation, Soul, of People Organized to Win Employment Rights, Forward Together, and Special Projects, director of National Domestic Workers Alliance. The Right to the City Alliance got $6.5 million between 2011 and 2014 from a number of very established tax-exempt foundations, including the Ford Foundation, $1.9 million. From both of George Soros's major tax-exempt Open Society foundations and the Foundation to Promote Open Society, $1.3 million. Cornflake Tide Kellogg Foundation, $250,000. And curiously, Ben & Jerry's, $30,000. Garza also got major foundation money as executive director of the FRSO Front Power, where Obama, former Green Job czar Van Jones, a self-described communist and rowdy black nationalist, now a CNN contributor, was on the board. Since 2009, the Front received $1.3 million from Ford Foundation, as well as $600,000 from the Soros Foundations. Ben & Jerry's, another $50,000. Soul, Garza's Soul, which claimed to have trained 712 organizers in 2014 when she co-founded Black Lives Matter, she got $210,000 from the Rockefeller Foundation and another $250,000 or $55,000 from the Heinz Foundation, John Kerry's family's corporation. It's all to transform culture and policy to catalyze social change. It officially got $4 million in 2014 revenues. From 2012 to 2014, the organization received a total of $2.9 million from Ford Foundation. Opal Tometi headed the FRSO's Black Alliance for Just Immigration. Curiously, staff of 2 got money from major foundations, including the Kellogg Foundation, Soros Foundations, and Ben & Jerry's. Tometi got $60,000 in 2014 to direct the group. Freedom Road Socialist Organization is now openly calling for a revolution against capitalism. The Advancement Project, which describes itself as a next-generation, multi-racial civil rights organization. Its board includes a former Obama, U.S. Department of Education Director of Community Outreach, and a former Bill Clinton Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. Yay, blue team! Go, Democrats! Oh, man. The Advancement Project in 2013 got millions from major U.S. tax-exempt foundations, including Ford, $8.5 million, Kellogg, $3 million, the Hewlett Foundation of HP, defense industry founder, $2.5 million, Rockefeller Foundation, $2.5 million, Soros Foundation's $8.6 million. You think these are really grassroots organic movements? BLMF, Black Lives Matter movement. And I think fund here. By 2016, the presidential election where Hillary Clinton was challenging Donald Trump, Black Lives Matter had established itself as a well-organized network. That year, the Ford Foundation and Borrellia's philanthropy announced the formation of the Black-led Movement Fund, a 6-year pooled donor campaign aimed at raising $100 million for the movement for Black Lives Coalition, in which BLM was a central part. Soros Foundations had already given some $33 million in grants to Black Lives Matter movement. This was serious foundation money. So the Black-led Movement Fund identified itself as being created by top foundations, including, in addition to the Ford Foundation, the Kellogg Foundation, the Soros Open Society Foundations. They describe their role. The fund, Black-led Movement Fund, provides grants, movement, building resources, and technical assistance to organizations working to advance the leadership and vision of young black, queer, feminist, and immigrant leaders who are shaping and leading a national conversation about criminalization. Well, I'm sorry, these young, you can't have a conversation with them. And they're being led right off the cliff by these people. Jesus. The Movement for Black Lives Coalition, which includes Black Lives Matter, already in 2016, called for defunding police departments, race-based reparations, voting rights for illegal immigrants, fossil fuel divestment, and an end to private education and charter schools, a universal basic income, and free college for blacks. They're pulling us all down. Click on the website of M4BL, Movement for Black Lives Coalition. Under their donate button, we learned that the donations will go to something called Act Blue charities. Act Blue facilitates donations to Democrats and progressives. As of May 21, Act Blue had given $119 million to the campaign of Joe Biden. BLM. All right. Here's Act Blue. This is how much they've raised since 2004. $5,382,270,000. Whoa, it's going up. Going up. Okay. Click on. Well, actually, this I got. Go to BLM. Black Lives Matter. Okay? Go to their website, fund, and hit donate. Act Blue. This goes to Act Blue. The donations are going to Act Blue. Joe Biden. Democrats. Puppets on a string. We want you to get out there and scream Black Lives Matter. Okay, I will. before the May 25 BLM worldwide protest, 119 million went to Joe Biden's campaign. Now major corporations such as Apple, Disney, Nike, and hundreds others. In fact, 1 billion from what bank? I can't remember. None of this is going to improve your life. None of it is going to improve the lives of young black people. The money is not going to you. The money is going to the people who are destroying you. Yay! Untold, unaccounted millions into Act Blue under the name of Black Lives Matter. Funds that in fact can go to fund the election of a Democrat President Biden. Perhaps this is the real reason the Biden campaign has been so confident of support from black voters. The crucial role of big money foundations behind protest groups such as Black Lives Matter is that there is a far more complex agenda driving the protests now, destabilizing cities across America. The role of tax-exempt foundations tied to the fortunes of the greatest industrial and financial companies such as Rockefeller, Ford, Kellogg, Hewlett, Soros, says that there is a far deeper and far more sinister agenda to current disturbances than spontaneous outrage would suggest. All of you guys out there screaming about Black Lives Matter, destroying and disrupting an awful lot of innocent lives, and you're like fighting for equality, fairness. You want the capitalists to go away. And you're funded by those capitalists that you claim to be fighting against. You're idiots and morons. Please begin to use your brain and do some research so that you know what you are doing. And then decide if you want to go back out on the street and scream Black Lives Matter. Because that screaming is destroying you. You, yourself, your own life, your freedom, your opportunity. It's frightening, actually, watching how many people are just complete fools. But they're bringing us all down. Every one of us. Needs to do everything that we can to stop what is taking place. Ciao, guys.